You don't know what you don't know, and you're only going to know what someone else is going to be there to teach you and direct you and show you how to do it. Uh, I grew up playing team sports, basketball, baseball, football, a little bit of roller hockey, and every time every season starts, you're walking out there with a new coach and a new system and a new team. And some of these kids, you didn't even meet them because they go to a different elementary school. The first time you meet them is that first day of practice, and you just kind of got to feel it out. I'm not a classically trained actor. I've done some wrestling. I spent years in the wrestling industry working with wrestlers. And a lot of that is improv. I only did about 2 years of improv.
Okay, I am here today with another one of the crew from Sunny Yard and very excited about it. Dustin Murray is here. I appreciate the fact that he came here to talk to me. I always start off with this really hot button question, which means one of the most important things I'm going to ask you. So, you used to do security, which I did not know until I started researching you. So, my question to you is you still look like you do security at this point in time, but you don't. You actually work in the grocery industry. So tell me a bit about what that's like, because literally your job is like to either kick people's ass, I assume, or like kick them out. So I imagine not everyone loves the security guy.
So I think what you're seeing is my security pictures of when I was in the professional wrestling industry.
Mitch,
Uh, what they
Mitch.
do is when you're training and you're young in the business and you want to get to know promoters and you want to be able to get booked on their shows, part of earning your dues or paying your dues is to build your relationships with them. You ask them while you're still training and you're not necessarily ready to get in the ring, hey, do you guys need anybody to work security for your show? I'll come hang out and I'll work security for your show. And it's not a paid gig. Most of those matches at that stage in your career aren't going to be a paid gig anyway.
Yeah,
So just to rub shoulders and not only that, but like you get an up close view of the pros or the guys that have been doing it definitely longer than you and how they do it in front of these audiences. And it's a really great learning tool. Uh, and it's a really good way to build relationships.
I
I
bet.
never had to throw anybody out. I just had to
Oh,
stand there and play my gimmick.
it works actually. Um, I know about the pro wrestling thing, and I know you had studied pro wrestling before. So I had just interviewed somebody who did a show all about wrestling, as a matter of fact. So what I want to ask you is there someone or something that you admire about the sport of pro wrestling?
Yes. I think the art form and the sport, because it is both of professional wrestling, is just absolutely beautiful to me because it's it's part ballet, it's part athletics, it's part combat sport, it's part theater show. Like it's got everything you could ever want from, especially from a testosterone driven man, little boy. You get the comedy stuff, you get the action, you get the drama, so and so's mad at so and so, and this isn't even over the belt. This is just you and me, brother, in the ring tonight. We're gonna settle this mano a mano. And then, like, when they get in there, uh, everything is about taking care of one another and building the best story in that moment in time. Nowadays, it's a lot more like, especially on the main stage, like, and you get to WWE and all this stuff is like very much scripted out, like in the back, we're gonna hit these points, blah, blah, blah. It's gonna finish this way. Whereas, like, when you're coming up on the indies, you meet some old school people, they're like, hey, we're gonna call this on the fly. And you just keep your ears open and do what I tell you to do. And I think that's a lot of fun because I don't even know what I'm going to be doing next, but he knows what I'm going to be doing next. And as long as I do what he told me to, they're going to go crazy. Like at some point in time, like, because I didn't get to do it very long. I was in the ring for about just over a year before I blew my back out. And I was just getting to the point to where like I could feel people out as they're telling me things like I could almost like I knew it was coming and I'm already getting into position to make that happen. So it's really cool because it's a brotherhood of a locker room, and at the same time, they put on shows that are hopefully believable to that you think they hate each other, and I think
Yeah.
there's something really beautiful about that.
No, that was very nicely done. Thank you. Interestingly enough, when I was researching you, I saw that you actually served in the Army for 2 years.
Yeah, yeah, it should have been six, but I couldn't keep my nose clean. I screwed up. I actually signed up a 6 year re-enlistment, so it should have been at least eight. I planned on making a career out of it.
Yeah.
Uh, when little inside scoop, when I signed up, they threw me $30,000 because they couldn't get anybody else to join. And when I got to my unit after all my basic training and everything, it was in South Georgia at Fort Stewart. I had a squad leader that would give me a haircut, and I'm not going to say any names because I don't know if they're still in or whatever they're doing. But he'd have me come over. I'd give him $5 for a haircut. He'd make sure I was nice and clean. I was 19. He'd give me a beer, let me have a beer, watch the game, give me a haircut, smoke a blunt with me, and that was life. That was the life that we were living. You know, you got to remember this is the middle of the Iraq War. They couldn't get anyone to join, so everybody was getting away with doing whatever they felt like. Drug tests, you got to be kidding me. Like, are we taking them? Yeah, we're taking them. Is anyone actually getting caught? I don't know. You know, depends on who you are if you're getting caught or not. I feel like is what the situation we were in. You know, we had guys they went on the last deployment and it was a tough deployment. They were at war and they weren't going to go back under any circumstances. And they took anything they could to fail everything they could fail. And the army was like, cool, we're just going to play games with you and hang on to you. I went to Iraq and the whole script changed. We had a new president in office who had announced that we were leaving, and the rules changed like that. And I had a buddy who happened to be able to get some weed while we were out there, and we would smoke every other day or so, and just a way to relax when we didn't have anything going on. Never should have been doing it. I never should have been doing it. I'll be the first to tell you right here, right now. I never should have been doing it. But it was a zero tolerance policy at that point. I got caught one time, probably about a week or two after I signed a 6 year re-enlistment. I was all gung ho. I was in it. I wanted to make a career out of it. I was committed to it. Probably the first thing I've ever really committed anything of my life to, like really fully committed anything. And then the rug got pulled out from underneath me from my own doing. I screwed up, and it took me years to own up to my side of everything. But it was a really tough experience. It was about 10 years that I like really beat myself up over it because I really wanted to get that retirement. I really wanted to, not just from the pension side of things, but like I really wanted that status of being retired United States Army. I wanted to have that and I wanted to carry that with me the rest of my life and the connections that you get from it and the second career that you can roll that into. Like I really wanted that. And it took me a while to get over it. And I'm finally over it.
Mm. Thank you for your service, by the way.
That was my pleasure, unfortunately.
No, 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 but I
I
thought
probably enjoyed it too much.
that was super important to bring up. Okay, so my next question to you is I'm obviously aware that you came from Indiana and moved to Las Vegas in 2021. So the question I have about that is vastly different, kind of similar to Wisconsin and New York City. So could you tell me, is there something that you miss about Indiana or something that you appreciate about Las Vegas or both, really?
So yeah, like I'm from Indiana, born and raised. I've lived across the United States. I spent time in Bridgeport, Connecticut for about a year. I lived in Colorado Springs for about 2 years. Stationed at Fort Stewart, Georgia, in Hinesville, which is down now 45 minutes west of Savannah. So I've lived around the country, but I think my fondest memories of the Midwest are actually in the Dayton, Cincy area.
Okay.
I lived in Miamisburg, and I lived like right off the Miami River, and I'd go to the gym for like 2.5 hours, and then I'd go run on the Miami River down from Miamisburg to Franklin, and
Okay.
that's like a good like 3 mile run, 4 mile run on the river. But the river was just so cool to just go run on, and I think if there's anything I miss most about home, it's probably the Dayton, Cincy area. I miss my friends. I had like a little bit of a community out there, and I miss those guys a lot. I'll be honest with you, I don't really miss my family. Like I love them, you know what I mean? But it's one of those families where like I feel like we're better off at like an arm's reach away as opposed to being in each other's backyard. My stepmom was living in Phoenix. My dad passed away when I was 19. Uh, my stepmom and I are still really close, and she left Phoenix about a year ago to go live with her new boyfriend.
Sure.
Finally, after 15 years, she finally was able to take that next step, find someone that made the right fit, and now she's up in Ohio living with him, back in her hometown, and I'm going to go see her in August. I'm excited about that.
Nice. Very, very nice. And then in Vegas, I guess one of the things I want to talk about, because I've been there numerous times, clearly you're awake 24/7 or you're available to do stuff all the time. And it's a city that's constantly got stuff going on. So for those of you that are residents, I imagine that it's a very different way of looking at Las Vegas, isn't it? I would gather you look at the city
It
different.
depends. I think it depends on how long you've been here, but there is something for everybody. If you love like the arts, there you can go catch improv, stand-up comedy, any day of the week. I've made good friends with I don't have a talk to him in a couple of years, but he used to be a regular at my store. His name is Mark Cohen. He's the MC for what's it called? The Cellar, the Comedy Cellar over at the Rio. And I used to just on contact be able to be like, hey, if you got any comp tickets tonight, I'd like to come watch some comedy. And I could probably still reach out to him and go watch comedy at the Cellar on a
Oh,
random day throughout the week. He said no Fridays, no Saturdays. So, but there's that. There's music. They got Fremont Street where they're giving the free stuff all the time throughout the summer. I'm a big electronic dance music person. I like all genres of it. There's always somebody to go see out here in a tight-knit club space. I'm not even talking about the big fancy places that you got to go dress up and go wait in line forever and pay all kinds of money for. I'm talking about the little hole in the wall spot that I can pay 45 bucks to go see like a headlining artist that would be like at a festival main stage. So it's pretty
gotcha.
cool.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah. It loses its luster every time.
Oh, I bet, actually. One of the allure, I think, for most of us is we don't get to gamble 24/7 or drink 24/7 or see some of the shows that are available there. You know, New Kids on the Block is there. Some of us might be coming there for that. I kind of feel like. So you guys have some offerings that we don't in New York City, which I'm excited about. Comedy sports is one thing that I know you've participated in. I imagine there is somewhat pressure, although it's exciting to perform. What happens if you have kind of a dead crowd, or like how difficult is it to make people laugh, especially nowadays? I'm like, it's got to be a tough call, man.
I think the biggest thing that helped me out with comedy sports was my experience in professional wrestling because you're used to wrestling in front of like 10 people maybe, and you're gonna get a hot dog for it at the end of the night if you're lucky. You can't worry about how many people are there. It You can't in the moment be thinking, oh well, why aren't I getting the reaction that I think I should? You can look at it in hindsight and you'll get your notes and stuff like that at the end of the show.
Mhm.
Uh, and that'll always help you out. But for me, I can tell you that my biggest problem always comes down to scene work. I'm always good at running a bit and being a good character and all this stuff, but my scene work it seems to fall apart sometimes. And if I didn't have good improvisers around me, I'd fall flat on my face every single time I got on stage. And I think that was part of the problem with the practice things. It was only getting one rep. Is like it felt like every time I was getting a rep, I'm getting it with the people that's really hard to work with, and it's a
Sure.
frustrating moment. And I was like, I had to go take a break, you know.
Well, and the thing about comedy too is that in the film genre, anyways, a lot of us talk about how everybody wants to watch a comedy, but it can be a very hard sell. Sometimes it's difficult to get people to come and sit down and spend a couple of hours listening to a bunch of different comedians, etc. So I applaud you just for trying that. I'm not even sure I could do that, like professionally speaking. It's got to be a tough gig sometimes.
What's really
Um,
cool about comedy sports is it's a whole like unit. Like so you got two teams of three, there's a referee, you got an MC on the mic in the back that keeps people up to date. There's somebody that's keeping score and running graphics. So like and everybody on the team has to play those roles at some point. Not everybody is going to be on a three-person team trying to make people laugh and competing against the other person. Sometimes you're going to be in the back just hitting the keyboard and trying to keep up with things,
yeah,
and sometimes you're the house manager. Sometimes you're the person that's just keeping everybody in place and making sure that the things are staying on schedule.
yeah.
So it's really cool because it's like it is an actual team of people and it's a real community. Yeah, they got something really special going on down here in Las Vegas with comedy
Hmm.
sports. I can tell you that.
Go comedy sports. I like this. And now I'm excited to see it myself, which I have yet to do as well. Um, Speaking of hard work, so you were in this wonderful picture, Sunny Yard. You play a very bad guy. As I understand it, this is the very first role you've ever had from an acting perspective. Some people just walk into it and make their way through it, no research, no spending any time trying to get acquainted with the character. They just kind of jump into it. Others come much more prepared, going more method. For you personally, what was your experience when you first signed on and said, yeah, you know what, I think I can do something like this?
So, from my understanding, Vernon is kind of like an overly self-assured moron. Like he thinks he just knows he's got it all figured out, and that I hate to say it, that was me at like 19, 18, 20 years old, and I was never as despicable as Vernon is in the film, but I was around plenty of those like really awful people. And for me, like I grew up, my sister had this boyfriend named Alan, and he was the absolute worst human being on earth, but he had this charm to him. He would make you laugh,
Mm.
and he'd make you laugh by sitting in the passenger seat of the car, riding through traffic, waving at people, and then flipping them off. Like he was just the most absurd jerk of a human being, but he was funny. Like there was things about him that was like charming. And I think Alan was kind of like that inspiration. And I hate to say that because like I hated Alan growing up. I hated him, but he would make me laugh, and I'd still want to go to the park and play basketball with him because he was good at basketball. But
Sure.
he'd make me feel like I was this big by all the crap that he would talk to me, and and like made me like he bullied the crap out of me, but I still like going to the park playing basketball with Alan.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
I kind of approached the character a lot like, and heavily inspired by Alan now that I think about it in hindsight, because yeah, that was like a lot of like tapping into my youth and the type of person I was back then, but a
Yeah.
lot of that was influenced by Alan.
Hmm. Well, and as I mentioned, it's your very first role. So I guess was there ever a part of you that thought, you know what? I don't know what I've gotten into. It's a feature film. It's not even a short. It's not even a small role. We were just kind of popping in and popping out, etc. So, and this is more for benefit for other actors out there. What would you suggest to someone if they're stepping into a feature, stepping in as a bad guy, stepping in for the first time? Any lessons you learned? Any advice you want to give?
You don't know what you don't know, and you're only going to know what someone else is going to be there to teach you and direct you and show you how to do it. Uh, I grew up playing team sports, basketball, baseball, football, a little bit of roller hockey, and every time every season starts, you're walking out there with a new coach and a new system and a new team. And some of these kids, you didn't even meet them because they go to a different elementary school. The first time you meet them is that first day of practice, and you just kind of got to feel it out. I'm not a classically trained actor. I've done some wrestling. I spent years in the wrestling industry working with wrestlers. And a lot of that is improv. I only did about 2 years of improv, um, and I just approach it like the, you got to do the Bruce Lee thing, right? You got to be water, be water. Like you got to do the thing that they're telling you to do, and you can't fight with people on it because you don't know anything about it. And I don't think I would ever change that approach because like I would want to be somebody that's easy to work with. Like if I'm doing something and you want me to tweak it or change it, then I'll do it. I've got a buddy named Brock who's worked in the film industry for a while, and we did he tried to get like a little animated like film series type thing made, and he just never really got past the pre-development phases. But we laid down some voice work for it, and I did about six of the voices that he had on there, and it was really fun and it was really easy. And he had said something to me through the process of like, wow, you're really easy to work with. And I took a lot of pride in that, and I still take a lot of pride in that. Is like I I didn't have this vision. You had this vision. I'm just here to try and help facilitate putting that vision out there.
Yeah.
And if I've got things that I can add to it, I'm going to do it your way every single time, as many times as I can. But then when we get to a point where it feels like you're kind of going, what? You got anything? I'll let you know the thing I have. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
like if I feel like we've built the relationship up enough to where like you trust me, then I might say, hey, could we try it like this? But that's I feel like that takes a lot of effort to get to that point and earn that right to be able to say, hey, maybe we could try this, you know? And I think we did that a couple times with Trina, but it wasn't like it was the first thing we did. It was like, hey, I've been laying on this floor forever in an air conditioned bus in the middle of the day. Hey, could we try doing this real quick? You know, like
Yeah.
I think, you know, when you've earned, you know, a little bit of skin, you get a chance to maybe ask a question or two. But like I don't want to be the person that's got all the ideas because it's not my vision.
I
Not unless
understand.
I feel like I'm really in tune with this character, and it just doesn't seem like the character would do something like that. You know what I mean? Like, but
Yeah.
that I feel like we'd have to have gotten to a point before I even thought of something like that, you know?
One of the things that I noticed during the course of the film is it's clear that you filmed in a junkyard. And so I asked
Yeah.
Trina about this. So I'll ask you on the actor side. Got to be complicated. I mean, it's messy. There's stuff everywhere, all over the place. So, just how challenging is it to be on a set like that in terms of actual filming? What are there big complications to this? Did you find it to be an easy process? I'm just curious.
My mom was kind of a nomad when I was like between 5 and 6 years old. We lived on a junkyard. She
My
rented a house.
God.
She rented a house that was connected to a body shop. Like the body shop owned like this little four-house property,
Yeah.
and we lived in the house that was like butted up against the junk. I used to play in that junkyard all the time. I didn't have any qualms with being on a junkyard. It took me back to being a kid. My dad was a truck driver too, so all the parts and stuff laying around was no big deal for me.
I like that. That's very, very cool, actually. And I also noticed that Vernon has an accomplice. So Vernon is not being naughty all by himself. So I was curious to ask about that too, meaning it almost looked like on camera, for camera's sake, you guys have this good relationship. So how much time did you get a chance to get to know one another before working together?
So it's Derek Shipman, and he made me look like $1 million worth more than I am, you know, and he's incredible. I spent I think we spent like a total of like 2 hours together at the theater on two separate days. So like an
Okay.
hour on two separate occasions, just kind of running over ideas. We sat in a couple of chairs next to each other in the theater and kind of had some banter back and forth about how we were going to get into this thing because there's no written script. Everything we did was improvised, but it
Hmm.
was all about building chemistry and establishing the characters' desires and what they're trying to get done. Um, yeah, we didn't hardly spend any time together. I probably see him more. I've seen him more at my grocery store since then than I spent with him leading up to being in the car with him and like being at the junkyard.
Oh my God, that's wild. I just would have
Yeah, 'cause
assumed that. Huh.
he shops at my store. I see him like twice a week, and we talk for like 5 or 10 minutes every time.
Well, kudos to both of you because you look very, very natural, very comfortable together, and look like you had this nice working relationship there, which is nice. That's the magic of acting, by the way. So back to Vernon. I am always a believer that despite no matter how evil one is in a film, it is possible that Vernon has some redeeming qualities. So, as the character himself, would it be fair to say that maybe he's not as evil as we might think he is?
Yeah, he's like totally in over his head. And with each decision he makes, he just gets a little further in over his head. And to the point to where like he's just completely desperate. You know,
Yeah.
like he knows he's backed himself into like the worst possible corner and it's fight or flight and Vernon ain't no quitter, you know? Hell, Vernon thought he could jump that fence. Like, come on. Like he's clearly not the best decision maker. And at the end of the day, he's too stubborn to give up on these precious metals that are going to change his life. And
Right?
uh, let's be honest, like there's probably what, like maybe at best $4,000 worth of metal in that equipment in that
Yeah.
yard. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so he thinks he's getting this massive payday, but he's just too dumb for his own good.
Would you have wanted a different conclusion for how your character ended up?
Um, I don't know because I think Vernon at some point has broken. You know,
Yeah.
he's no longer who he used to be based off of what he's went through that day.
Right.
Like I think if he goes to prison, he's not going to come out reformed. You know what I mean? He's going to go in there and he's going to become a worse person, and all of his redeeming qualities, anything that is redeemable about him, goes out the window. So
Yes,
I think it's probably better off that we just put a nice little bow on it, and no one has to deal with that person again,
it makes sense.
or deal with that because he's never going to be the same. You
Yeah.
know,
Oh God, no,
if
absolutely not.
if that's a real person, that person what they went through on that day, even if they
All of
put
them.
themselves through it, you know,
Yeah.
and yeah, and the fact that he put himself through it, it was his fault. Like, if he even has the ability to take accountability for any of it, seems like someone who's going to have a public defender, and the public defender's not going to do a great job there. And he's not going to do a great job defending himself. He's going to get a maximum sentence,
Yeah.
and his life was never going to be any good after that.
Jeez. So the $1 million question I've asked before is, in your particular case, you are very different from Vernon. So it's always fascinating to me that men that are completely the opposite of evil characters are just the direct opposite, but yet they portray something completely removed from themselves. So my question to you is, what is the allure of Vernon to you? Why go so completely different?
It's like bad people suck. You know what I mean? Like, and it's it's really fun to just be the worst, in a controlled setting. And you know that no one's going to get hurt or anything like that because people need to see it. People need to see bad people being bad, doing bad things, and then getting their comeuppance. Like that
Yeah.
needs to have it's classic storytelling. Going back to my professional wrestling days, I was Derek Hiller, the disgruntled army veteran that blamed society for all his problems. Like, and part of me felt that way, but I also knew how wrong it was to actually feel that way. And
Yeah.
that's why it was my wrestling character. He's a bad guy. I know
Yeah.
he's a bad guy. And the way he feels is what makes him a bad guy.
Hmm. Okay. Now, I don't want to forget to ask this question. Trina, of course, who is the creator, she and I sat down for a long interview the other day. So I'm just curious to ask, was it her that brought you to this project, or was there some element about what she created that you wanted to be part of? How did you initially get on board with this?
So I don't know if you could tell, but I'm kind of hard to reach and get a hold of. And she had been trying to get a hold of me for like a month or two before. And I guess it was the last second. She's like, I got this film. Do you want to do it or not? And I was like, yeah, yeah. What do I need to do? And then we did the couple of like practice runs at the theater with just getting some chemistry with people. And she was like, I think it's going to work. And I was like, cool. And that was it. It just happened like over a course of 6 weeks. She asked me to do it. We did a couple of practice runs and then we were on set. And I think that's another reason where I was just kind of like, I don't have any, what am I actually supposed to do other than what you tell me to? Tell me where to stand, tell me where to look, tell me how I'm supposed to feel right now. And like, we didn't have any actual written dialogue, so, I could say whatever I feel like this character needs to say based off of what I know about the character and where we're at this time. So, and I love that. That's another thing is like, not being a classically trained actor, I don't know if I could do a scripted film, to be honest with you, because I don't know if I have the attention span to sit there and learn it all. I got to be somebody that you want to work with.
Now, I asked Trina what I'm going to ask you now. Sunny Yard means something very different to me, which I gave my description in the last interview. So I will ask you to tell everyone in 2 sentences only, what is Sunny Yard about?
Is about realizing where we are in life and appreciating it for what it is, then being able to take the next best step.
Not bad.
And
Not
that's
bad.
that's the putting a bow on it. And I'll tell you why is because like it's about Sunny's arc because her arc is the opposite of Vernon's arc.
Oh yeah. Oh God, yeah.
Like so like she's gonna come out the other side better for everything, whereas even if he's not going to.
Yeah. That's good. Very well put there. And congratulations, by the way, because you just got a win recently in New York City. I was so excited about that. I was like, go team, you guys are awesome. So I wish I could tell you if you go to, and I'll put up on social media the ways that you can find out where Sunny Yard's going to be playing in the near future, which could be New York, could be Vegas, could be all sorts of different states. We're in the midst of figuring that out right now. As far as for Dustin Murray in the future, if anybody wants to meet you, connect with you, see a performance, where do they go to do that?
8555 West Sahara Avenue. That's going to be the Smiths at Durango and Sahara. Order your curbside pickup through there. I'm usually there Friday through Sunday, guaranteed. Mondays, Thursdays, and Tuesdays, it just depends. It just depends. But Friday through Sunday, you stop by, pick up your groceries there. I'll give you a nice little 5 minute show. And I'll
Well,
help you get some
honestly,
groceries.
anyone watching this should cast this guy. Why? Because you've just watched this entire interview unfold, and it's very clear that he is a performance artist, period. So this is
Yeah, I
what I want
love
to
I love
say.
Andy Kaufman. I love Andy Kaufman. I love that Sacha Baron Cohen. I don't like the idea. I don't think I could do stand-up comedy. I like improv. I don't like the commitment, you know what I mean? But I'm on stage every day.
Clearly, case in point by this interview. Typically, what I like to say to various actors is number one, thank you. What you don't really realize is that you engage us and motivate us and entertain us in ways that you may not be aware of. In fact, you've probably touched more lives by doing this one project than you might think you know. So, from me to you, what I want you to know is how much we appreciate what you do for art, how much I appreciate your time, and of course, obviously, being a part of Sunny Yard, because I think it was just wonderful.
Thanks for watching it.
Well, absolutely, without a doubt.